Democratic Congresswoman Maxine Waters at it again, renewing her call to impeach President Trump. Only now she says it's keeping her up at night.
I wake up in the middle of the night and all I can think about is I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. I'm in this fight and I'm not going to move. And as you know, there's a difference in how some of our leadership talk about how we should handle all of this. They say, Maxine, please don't say impeachment anymore. And when they say that, I say impeachment, 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 impeachment.
You may remember Waters back in June urging supporters to harass Trump officials out in public. She's now defending those remarks in a way only Maxine Waters can.
I did not threaten his constituents, his supporters. I do that all the time, but I didn't do it that time. But what bothered me so much was they tried to frame that as violence. That's not violence. As a matter of fact, I said the poster child for violence is the President of the United States.
Amen.
Okay. Juan, you were laughing about that. What was so funny?
Well, when I hear Maxine Waters talk like this, I think, oh, gee, I wonder who started the bullying, the incivility, the harshness. And she's right. I mean, he's the one that said, I remember the good old days when they would knock a protester out, or I'll pay your legal bills after you slug a guy.
You mean the DNC paid protesters to fight at Trump
Here
rallies?
we go. I'm just saying, you never want to talk about Trump, do you? Everything, it's the
What do you mean?
It's
Did you
the
watch
elite
the
Hollywood. You just don't like to talk about Trump and his excesses.
Okay, so
What has Maxine Waters done that she's so great that she can run around and say, you know what, I can threaten his followers, he's got to be impeached. Now she says Vice President Pence needs to be impeached. Who is this woman? Is she a comedian?
Apparently, she's smart.
You think?
Unlike some who call her
You mean
low intelligence.
IQ,
Yeah,
Maxine.
unlike some people who want to call her that, I think obviously she is having an impact. Because even Nancy Pelosi and others, I know that you don't like Nancy, but Nancy Pelosi said, don't do it. As she said, but pretty funny.
there's a reason
don't
why.
say impeach, don't, and she is having success doing her own
Well,
thing.
that's the game, though, because the game I think Pelosi's running is you don't want to say impeachment until we win back the House. Then we're supposed to impeach.
Right. So when Maxine Waters says she wakes up in the middle of the night and she's like, I'm going to get him. Like, if I ever wake up in the middle of the night, it's like, Jasper, would you please move over? Like, I do not wake up in the middle of the night thinking I'm going to go after any politician ever. It's never happened in my life. What Pelosi is saying is, don't say it out loud. Because what happened to Bill Clinton when he was president, when the Republicans caved to the base, really, and said, OK, we are going to start impeachment hearings before the midterms. Well, guess what? Democrats united right behind, all of them got behind Bill Clinton. His popularity went up. He was able to succeed, and he walked out of the White House in much better shape than if they had just held their fire.
Yeah, Maxine's firing up the Republicans.
Well, it's funny. I also scream impeachment in the middle of the night because it's my safe word. You have to understand that, okay, 10 years ago, her opinions would be seen as extreme or radical, but now she's the mainstream of the Democratic Party. And the reason is that Trump has been good for her and her constituents. First, her constituents are enjoying record low unemployment and a booming economy, and they're not dying in foreign wars. That's pretty good. The second, but also is her profile has never been higher.
Exactly.
Now when she speaks, people listen. He's good for business. Her business as well. She fires up both bases. She fires up her base and their bases. That's why I think they should go head to head. Don't unseat him. Try to beat him. Run for president.
Yeah, but
Maxine should run.
But the point that you make is so good, and that is, who ever heard of this woman until she started yelling, impeach, impeach, impeach 45? Honestly, had you heard of her?
Oh, yeah, I've known Maxine forever because she's very entertaining.
How do you know her?
Oh, how do I know her?
She's a leading
congresswoman.
voice.
She's a leading voice of what? Impeach? What is her message other than go after people, get in their face, make a crowd? Who talks like that?
Donald Trump.
Go,
Gregory, go. Gregory, go.
That's why I'm saying she should run. This is the mirror image of lock her up, right? Lock her up.
But lock her up, she committed crimes. I mean, there's no question about that. Had they had a real grand jury, then that would have been something that would have happened.
Yeah,
but they didn't.
One, is winning a high crime and misdemeanor? Last time I checked, winning's not grounds for impeachment.
No, not unless you cheat and bully and lie.
But that's still, you can still,
I think it was
by the way,
Hillary
you
that
can still
cheated,
lie.
and she
cheat.
still lost. All right. Listen,
Okay.
Maxine is at it again, and it's okay because she has denied now that she wants to cause violence to people. But if you read the quote, create a crowd, push back, tell them they're not welcome.
That's right.
But
To
here's
me, that's going to cause
the
some
great thing
violence.
about her is she is guaranteed at least she's guaranteed us one segment a week. She will do something and we get one
It used to
segment.
be Hillary.
Yeah, it used to be Hillary.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's the new
yeah,
Hillary.
you're right. It
All
used
right,
to be.
keep talking, Maxine. We love you.
Congresswoman Maxine Waters is leading the Democratic charge this fall. Her weapon of choice is rage. In a speech last weekend, she vowed that Democrats would impeach not simply President Trump, but once they finish doing that, Vice President Mike Pence as well. Watch.
This deplorable, despicable human being that occupies the White House should not be there. They say, Maxine, please don't say impeachment anymore. And when they say that, I say impeachment, 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 impeachment. When someone asks, but what about Pence? If you were able to impeach, Pence will be worse. And I said, look, one at a time. You knock one down, and then we'll be ready for Pence. We'll get him too.
Keep in mind, if Democrats win in 2 months, Maxine Waters will be a committee chairman. Mark Penn was a pollster and strategist for Bill Clinton, and he joins us tonight. So, Mark, you spent a lot of time thinking about messages. Who's in charge of the Democratic message, do you think?
Well, that's a good question. There doesn't seem to be either a Democratic message or particularly a Republican message as we go into this.
Yes.
Other than, Trump's no good and we've got to put guardrails on him, and the Democrats have moved too far to the left and want to impeach him. That's what passes for a serious message today.
If you're the Democrats, though, wouldn't you look at the last election and say, let's see, a lot of former Democrats voted for Trump because they felt left behind by the economy. Maybe we should try to win their votes back. No one seems to be doing that. Why?
Well, look, I think that this is going on individual races. Maxine Waters is talking to Democratic base, voters who are 90% going to vote, for the Democratic column, and she's trying to stimulate turnout. That's not what's happening in real swing districts, where I think there's a battle between the candidates. There's a battle over the health care issue that the Democrats, I think, won handily. And so I think they put that front and center. There's some serious issue debates out there. We just don't really see them because they don't make news.
It seems to me that if you're, watching at home and there's a congressional race, and there is where you live, you look at Maxine Waters and you think, boy, I don't want anything to do with the party that puts her forward as a spokesman. I mean, is that counterproductive, do you think, since we now have television and we can all see what she's saying?
Well, Maxine Waters is counterproductive for the overall Democratic message, but she's not a key Democratic leader. In fact, the Republican leaders, McConnell and Ryan has quit, but then he didn't leave. McConnell is intensely disliked. If you look at Schumer and Pelosi within the party, they actually have the support of Democrats in terms of what they want to do. Republicans right now have no leader outside of President Trump.
No, that is absolutely true. Republicans do not like Paul Ryan, I would say, by and large. Who's going to be the speaker if Democrats win?
Well, look, I think Pelosi probably will win in the first instance, but I don't think she'll continue to serve. I think then there will be a struggle behind the scenes. I think there's a problem solvers group that is looking to have some influence, if it's close, in terms of changing the rules and naming the speaker. Because remember, the speaker technically has to be elected by a majority vote of the House, not the majority vote of a caucus.
So you think Pelosi will get, if the Democrats win, Pelosi will be elected speaker but then not serve?
Look, I don't think she's going to serve through to the next election. My suspicion would be she would get elected because she won, she turned the House, but between then and the next election, there'd be a new speaker. I think that the Democratic Party is looking to have new blood and new leadership. The question is where and who.
The last question, I mean, there are a bunch of adults in the Democratic Party. I know them. They live near me. They seem afraid of the net roots of Democratic activists online who are way out to the left from where they traditionally have been. Do they have the power and the will to stand up to those constituencies and say, no, I'm sorry, we're not making this Venezuela, no? Or are they too intimidated?
Some do and some don't. I mean, remember that because of the caucuses in the Democratic primaries, the activists have outsized power compared to the run-of-the-mill voter in big states, which is really most Democratic voters. And so you see embarrassing performances like Senator Cory Booker playing for the presidential race. But I think you look at what Joe Biden is doing, and he tends to be pitching to the responsible center. So far, he's got the best message and shown the greatest responsibility out there on the stump.
Yeah. Mark Penn, great to see you. Thank you very much for that.
They say, Maxine, please don't say impeachment anymore. And when they say that, I say impeachment, 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 impeachment.
You've already said that you support impeachment of the president.
I think it's certainly something that needs to be on the agenda. I absolutely do.
I mean, Bill Clinton was impeached but not removed from office. We don't want to be in a situation where the president is deranged and we've got nothing that we can do about it.
Well, the midterms are fast approaching, and some Democrats are having a tougher time hiding their obsession with impeachment. Ken Starr, the man who led the Clinton investigation in the 90s that brought about the former president's impeachment, calls the process hell for the country. He's out with a new book today titled Contempt, a memoir of the Clinton investigation. And we're also joined by former U.S. Attorney and Fox News contributor Andy McCarthy. Gentlemen, it's great to see you. Judge Starr, let's go to you first. I remember 1998 like it was yesterday and all that was happening at the time. Bill Clinton at the time had about a 40% approval rating, 42%, mid-40s. But after he was impeached, his rating, approval numbers started going up, up, up. Is that part of what you're thinking may happen here if the Democrats actually go for the brass ring on impeachment?
Well, it could very well happen because the American people, and part of the message in my book is be careful what you ask for, because I do think impeachment is hell. It's hell to go through for the American people. Even though there are very strong feelings on one side and then on the other side, that is not our system. We have impeachment in the Constitution. It's an important last resort. And the country did not feel as a whole that Bill Clinton, for all of his crimes, and he committed crimes, and we proved that he committed crimes, that he should actually be removed in his last year and a half in office. We have elections in the country, and those elections mean something. Midterms coming up. Why in the world are the Democrats, some of the Democrats, seriously discussing impeachment? I think it's folly, but that's the politics. I think it's just very bad for the country. It is ultra divisive.
Judge, if you could do it all over again, would you still accept the job as independent counsel? I mean, knowing what you know now. I know it's a ridiculous question in a way. But...
No, I think about that question, and the answer is yes, I would. But I would not have made the second time around the blunders I made, especially dealing with the press, as I describe in the book. My decision to sit down with a real snake in the grass named Stephen Brill and to be interviewed by him, and for him then to completely distort what I had to say, and other journalists said that was a distortion because you were distorting what I had to say. And that brought on an investigation and so forth. So when I think about how I conducted it, we tried to conduct it, and I think we did with integrity. I'd make a lot fewer mistakes. And
Rosenstein worked for your team of prosecutors way back when. Andy, I also want to get your thoughts on the new text messages released today by Congressman Mark Meadows. They show more communications between the former FBI agents Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, and to some they point to a coordinated media leak campaign intended to harm President Trump. The correspondence ends with Strzok congratulating Page on an article being planted on Carter Page. Andy, your thoughts? Are there other ways to read this?
Well, there are a couple of ways to read it, Laura, although I must say that, you know, when you have a situation like we have here, where you've had a lot of evidence of high-ranking FBI officials leaking, you have to take that into account. I've been in investigations where people, I don't know that they use this phrase as clumsy as, you know, our press leak strategy, but there are some times that you have to have a strategy because you're being killed by leaks and you're trying to tamp down on them. Then there's another way of looking at it, which has never been my preferred way as a prosecutor, but there are prosecutors who endorse this, and that is this idea of tickling the wires, this idea that you take information that you have from your investigation, leak it to the press so that it gets out, and then as you monitor your wires, see if the people who are mentioned in the stories say and do things that are indicative of consciousness of guilt or concealing evidence and the like. Again, I don't think that's a proper way to go about an investigation, but it is done.
Well, his Strzok attorney, Aiton Goldman, said that the term media leak strategy in Strzok's text refers to a department-wide initiative to detect and stop leaks to the media. And then Mark Meadows responds today by saying the American people aren't buying his misdirection. In fact, Mr. Strzok did lead an effort to control leaks. As his attorney suggests, it's worth mentioning that such an alleged effort was clearly a failure. It should raise questions whether there was a serious effort at all. And finally, Andy, on the issue of impeachment, you're very skeptical about the idea that the Democrats would either have enough people to vote for impeachment, members, or that they would be able to get any Republicans on board enough to get to that critical level.
Well, I think if they were wise, they'd heed Judge Starr's sage words. But I think if they're just going to play brass knuckles, brass tacks politics, they're going to need more than a margin of a few congressmen or representatives in order to have enough in the way of numbers to get even the simple majority that you need to file articles of impeachment in the House. I just think they'll need a more comfortable margin if they want to go about that.
All right, Judge, finally, does Mueller need to wrap this up, Judge Starr? I mean, it's like he hasn't gotten everything he's wanted. He didn't get Trump for a sit-down. Doesn't look like it's going to happen. Is it time to kind of get the show on the road here?
Well, given what we know, there's no evidence of collusion. And I think that the American people have wanted to know that for a long time. The two indictments that have been returned do not point to collusion at all. So, yes, especially with respect to Russian collusion. Now, there is another perspective, and that is we don't know what other assignments he's been given by the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. So stay tuned. I want to say just a closing word on impeachment. As I describe in the book, 31 Democrats in the House of Representatives voted in favor of impeachment, and yet even with that, modest, but still, 31 is not nothing. 31 Democrats supporting, we see what eventually happened. There was another way, and I think that way needs to be discussed. Is the impeachment process something that should be reserved for the gravest kinds of offenses, high treason and the like? Is that the way we should approach it?
High crimes.
Yeah, truly high crimes and misdemeanors. Let's get rid of parsing language and say this is the disruption of an election. So what should we do? And there was not a serious conversation with respect to a resolution of censure. We need to have that debate.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, gentlemen.